Awesome. So now the meeting is being recorded as well. Or we have someone from UK and Canada as well. Nice. So yeah, pretty much all over Africa and North America. Uh, awesome. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the Fireside Chat with Joshua. Before we get started, I'll give you a little brief about entry level, and then we'll dive into a conversation with Joshua. Entry level helps you learn and get experience so you can get hired. So we offer a lot of fundamental and advanced courses in the field of tech where you can learn by doing and create portfolios. Before we start, there's also a few things to keep in mind. Please be respectful of everyone. You can notice that the mic is unmuted. So if you'd like to talk, you can raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question, and I can ask you to unmute then. But otherwise, if you have any questions or comments or yeah, anything you want to share, do it in the chat box and leave comments there and feedback as well. If you can turn on the camera, we would love to see your faces. I can see it's just, I guess, me and Joshua who has the camera on. So it would be nice if you can turn the camera on if it's possible. It's yeah, just feels nicer to see who we're talking to. And also this event is being recorded. So that's just an FYI as well. Again, another question which we before we begin is that since this is a break into tech sort of event where we help you understand how you can get started to build your career in tech, we would like to know what level you are at. So if you're a complete beginner, put one in the chat. If you have taken a few courses, but you're still figuring out what you want to do, put two. If you've already got an internship in the tech field, then write three. Or if you're currently working in the tech space, then write four. So again, it helps us uh, better like cater the conversation so Joshua can answer your questions more customized as well. And I can see that we have 35 people now in the call as well. So that's nice. So welcome to the new people who just joined us. Uh, let's see what everyone is saying. A lot of ones and twos. Oh, I think it's mostly ones and twos, and there's one person who's working in tech. Awesome. Uh, great. I think yeah, the rest can keep putting in their answers. So what the general sense I get is that a lot of people are complete beginners. The good news is that you are in the right place. This is an event for beginners, and will help you understand the tech space and answer your questions as well as understand Joshua's journey as well. Uh, Side plug about entry level. So these are the current courses that we offer. We have courses in UX design, product management, web development, more of front end web development with no code tools. At the moment, we have 14 courses live on the platform. There's a few more which are not available here. There's Power BI, there's Python. Python is here, but there's cybersecurity courses as well. So be sure to check out entry level. You'll get an email after this event to check out our courses as well. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat as well. The best part about learning with entry level is, in my opinion, like there's a lot of good things. There's a lot of great courses with a lot of great instructors. As you can see here, we have instructors from Amazon and the top um, venture capital funds as well who are teaching finance and other things. But I think the best part is the community that you get, the people who learn with you, who help you answer questions. As you can see in the image here, we have a very active Discord community. The second one is the portfolio, because these days everyone asks for proof of work and you have to show what you can do to get hired. So the courses help you build a portfolio. And the last one is peer reviews. Earlier, we had peer reviews where you would assess someone else's work, but now we have AI peer review. So the AI tool will give you feedback and help you improve your project so you can make sure you put your best foot forward. So that's about entry level. And also, my name is Ayush, so I help design the courses at entry level. I forgot to introduce myself. But now moving on to the guest of today's event, we have Joshua, who is a senior software developer at Condé Nast. So let's welcome him. Uh, hey, hey, Joshua, welcome to the event.
Mm, I, thank you very much.
I think let's jump into it and start with the chat. I think my first question, yeah, well, first question is the brief one. Like, we would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your sort of career journey, how you came to be working as a software developer and what's the current role that you have.
Okay. I'm a software engineer, right? Like everyone knows, and I started as far back as 2017 as a software engineer, and I started basically as an intern, right, still in school, and it was more of building. I was working for more of like a digital agency, so I was building a lot of stuff, right? Playing out around with a lot of tools, right? And the company I worked with then gave me a lot of opportunity and room to actually play with a lot of tools and learn from my mistakes, right? I did a lot of things, right? Even for our clients. Before I moved on to Softcom, where I was more of a front-end engineer, working more on client products to for transition into an engineering lead for Quicksell, where I worked as for Quicksell like commerce, like Shopify, where I was building then. Then I moved on to Stacks. Stacks was a more of e-commerce tool also, right? More like and a checkout like Stripe, right? They also were leading computer with Stripe. Then yeah, moved on to Salify, a startup, and currently at Condé Nast. Condé Nast um is publication, media publication, and I know most people don't know the brand name, but I believe that a lot of people know Vogue magazines, Glamour magazine, right? Yeah, that's the parent company for. So that's where I currently work, and that's been my journey so far up to now.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know about Condé Nast and I always read their like travel publications, travel stuff.
Oh, travel vacation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. And I'm like, this is what they do is really cool and like luxurious stuff. It's like, oh, it would be really cool to work for a company like that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
Oh well, someone else knows Condé Nast as well. Awesome. If you don't know Condé Nast, you should Google it. It's quite cool. For the
Nice.
others in the call. I think my next question to you is, what does your typical, I guess, day to day looks like? Maybe day is quite small. What does a week in life look like for a software developer in your?
Okay. So a week for me personally. So I work from the London office, right? Most of my colleagues are based in the US, right? So because of time differences, we always have like our stand up during afternoon, like at afternoon, right? So my day really is first thing I do is to check my mails, right? Like every single day, because there could be and check my calendar to schedule my day, right? That's really important because as a software engineer, so my voice might be so depth into the code and we forget to join our meetings, right? Really bad behavior. But I check my calendars, right? And next thing is to go through my Jira board, right? Tasks that I need to complete this week because mostly it varies between teams, right? For my team, we do mostly 2 week sprints, but sometimes a week sprint. So it varies based on the sprint planning and the tasks, right? So I go through my Jira board. Jira is more like a tool to track basically what the entire team is doing. So I go through my Jira board to check my tasks and um see what I need to work on basically, or work that I've been probably I didn't complete the day before. I picked that up. Keep status of that particular task. Then the next thing is to have my stand up, right? My stand up is just a 15-minute call, right? Where we give like updates on your progress, your blocker, and what you're working on next, right? So that's just the three core things you need to talk about during your stand up, right? And after that, stand up is daily, right? Mostly. But during the week, one other thing we do is sprint planning, right? So sprint planning is we select like one day, um, mostly Thursdays, right? Every 2 weeks, right? Where we have a long conversation um ranking the tasks, like pointing out the tasks, right? And you giving your input based on, okay, I'm working on this, like this is how long it will take me. And we spend that and draft out what we're going to be working on in the next sprint, basically. Then after that, I have a lot of calls. Some days could be Some days could be very booked up, as in your calendar, in terms of you're working with other teams and you are trying to attend to other teams, basically. So that's the way my day is basically um, on a day-to-day basis.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. I think I want to note that for the people who don't understand a lot of the terms like
Yeah,
Jira or
okay,
other
yeah.
tools, it's yeah. I wanted to make a plug against like we cover these concepts in detail in our courses as well. We have a Scrum Master course where we teach like what is a stand up, what is a sprint, and how does
Mhm.
those meetings work as well. So if anyone who's listening and is confused what we're talking about, uh, take a course and learn about it.
Yeah,
But at the
yeah.
same time, if anyone has any questions as well, I have a lot of questions prepared for Joshua. But at the same time, if anyone who's listening and if you have any questions, please put them in the chat because uh, well, he's here to answer questions from students as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat while I continue with uh, the questions I have. I think my next question is you mentioned like a lot of different tools. I guess coding in general is always evolving, and you also use a lot of different like tools for, I guess, project management related, like Jira and other things. But how have you seen, since you started as a software developer in 2017, how have you seen technology evolve over these years? I would mostly say software development related technology, like maybe it's coding languages or maybe it's tool that you use on a daily basis. And especially with AI in the last 2 years, everyone keeps scaring people. Is like now we have this tool, now we have this tool. So what do you think about this, and how do you stay updated with like what's happening?
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, like software engineering has really evolved, right, from when I started. So when I started, right, it was basically so there was Angular, there were a lot of frameworks back then. I'm just going to use a single programming language as an example, right? Talking about JavaScript, for instance, right? So there were a lot of frameworks, right? People were just building frameworks at that time, right? And as you grow, right, you understand that first of all, the basis of everything is the core foundation of understanding the programming language, right, which no one should miss out on, right? And every other thing that has been evolving has been built on that foundation, right? As you grow, right, there are a lot of, a lot of people get confused about, a lot of people get scared about, man, there are a lot of things to learn, and I don't know where to start from. Right. What I would say is that you need to, how I've defined my own path is basically that I've seen the things that are necessary for me in my area, right? Especially in community wise, there are the large community for it, right? That has already really helped me to understand that okay, this is a trend of what needs to be done, right? This is a trend of what I need to learn, and this is a trend of what I'm going into, right? And in terms of how I keep up to date in terms of learning, right? Because you never stop learning, especially in the tech world, right? As you also mentioned, AI is coming to, and a lot of people are scaring a lot of everyone off with AI, right? You need to keep learning, right? But you always need to keep learning, and that's one core thing for me, right? Every month um I must have picked up something to learn. Aside from learning, I also learn on the job, right? No matter how good you are, right? There are so many scenarios that might come up that you might have not experienced before, right? Although your previous experiences might maybe help you maneuver the situation out, but in terms of how I've kept myself learning in the tech world has evolved is I stay up to date. Basically, I always read a lot of tech news, right? Akanon is there. There's Medium Post. I read a lot of Medium Post. I get subscription to a lot of that, right? So that I know what people are doing. I know what people are building because if you can't call yourself a software engineer, right, without being on the internet, it defiles like what you call yourself, right? So that way I keep myself up to date, right? I don't if something is not if I see something as not really important, I try to get a sense of it, right? I try to get an understanding of it, right? I just read through it, right? I can just skim through like an article and see, okay, is this is something that is I'm passionate about learning or um passionate about reading about, right? Or passionate about going deep dive into it, right? And that has actually defined how I'm going to move my path. But aside from that, as a software engineer, there are so many road paths for you, right? But you need to just choose your path on saying, okay, this is the path, and I'm going to learn all the technologies on this path, right? Clearly. And there's a defined road path for every journey, right? And on that particular journey, there you need to update yourself on those particular infrastructures you're building with or tools you're building with. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for the detailed answer as well. That's very helpful.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
I also noticed I mean, I noticed them before, but your background where the lines are moving, I think that's really cool. I've never seen like a video
Sorry, I didn't get that.
background, uh, video background. Awesome. I guess so. Since you were talking about technologies, and then you also mentioned there's like a defined path for a lot of the rules as well.
Mhm.
Uh, if someone who is listening to us right now, they've done zero courses in software development, but they want to become a software developer, uh, where would you suggest they get started? Like what skills they should start to learn, which are the foundation skills, or which languages they should, because I think there's always, even when I was looking at learning, I'm not a software developer, but I thought I should learn coding. And I was like, there's like so many HTML, CSS, JavaScript course, but then someone tells me you should learn Python, but then someone told me don't learn that, learn Ruby on Rails, because that's like, I don't know. So I get confused. So what, according to you, based on your experience, what is your recommendation for someone who's getting
Okay,
started?
so I'll explain my own journey, right? And this is my own personal experience and my personal advice, right? Because as you said, um different programming languages for different scenarios, right? But for me, I started majorly as a web developer, right? And as a web developer, I started learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, which were the essentials of building a web, right? Before I moved into core JavaScript and PHP, learning other frameworks on top of that, like other programming language. So, well, what our advice is, um, you need to understand that pro build learning programming language, first of all, you need your passion to it, right? And you need to continue because a lot of people say, man, I don't understand this thing. You might not understand it at the immediate at that moment, but on you as you practice, consistency is key. As you practice, it makes you perfect, right? And one thing I want to really make people understand is that programming language is even um, the easiest part of software engineering, right? Because all syntaxes are like same across all programming languages, right? They are somehow similar syntaxes, right? Or some way how you can do some same stuff in other programming language, right? So what I would advise is that I believe that so these four areas are actually much easier to start with based on reviews and based on what I have practiced with, right? So HTML, CSS, right? You're just learning HTML, CSS just for um the concept of you might go straight down into web, right? But just having an idea of how the browser works, right? How your browser loads, right? That's just giving you that concept, right? And then you can now learn Python or JavaScript, right? I say Python or JavaScript because these are easier languages that you could pick from, right? In terms of their syntax, the way it is written, it is loosely typed. Well, not really loosely typed, but basically loosely typed languages where you don't need to really there's no really enforcement into okay, this is the structure of what I need to do, or this is the way I need to write this, right? So Python and JavaScript are really two good languages you could pick up from because they are way easier to pick up and way easier to understand. You don't really need to understand a lot of like the core functionalities or core things happening in JavaScript compilers or all that. You just need to learn the fundamentals. Same with Python, and it is something I would advise as a software engineer, right, to pick up, right? Those are like program languages I advise you to pick up.
Awesome. Uh, so yeah, I hope everyone took notes on what to start
Mm.
learning. Uh, there is one question in the chat, but I will come back
Okay,
to, I will come back to that towards like the end of the conversation. That's more about job search.
okay,
And yeah, we will come back to that before we talk about more about skills and stuff.
all
So if
right,
now someone follows your advice and they learn HTML, CSS, they do a course in Python as well. And so they've learned a few languages and they feel like they're confident uh, with some sort of like just like all full stack development. Like they've learned some front end, they've learned some back end, and now they want to build a portfolio because they want to showcase their skill sets to their future employer or for an internship because they need to apply. Yeah, they need to
yeah.
show that they know these skills. So, can you offer any tips for that people should keep in mind when creating a portfolio, and maybe any specific projects that they should like that they should assume that you would look for, and if you're hiring a
Okay.
beginner, if you're hiring a front like a beginner entry level developer?
All right. So as a software engineer that is just learning, one key tool you need to know how to use is your GitHub, right? As an entry level, right? You need to build a lot of minor projects, even as little as to do tasks, right? Just adding to do, right? It puts you ahead of someone that doesn't even use GitHub, right, as a software engineer. Um, so that alone, the fact that understand GitHub puts you ahead of other people that are applying, right? When I can see your project on GitHub, right, and you can give me an instance of, okay, this is what you can do, right? Then also, aside from using GitHub, there are a lot of basic tasks that you could work on, right? I've mentioned to-do list, which is one of the simplest, right, things to do, which is just basically adding tasks, adding items into a to-do list, right? Removing, adding, basically, right? That's very easy to do. Another thing I would like to tell to give you to take your step more further, right? And it helps you understand, gives you like an idea of, okay, how difficult or how problems you could be solving, right, in terms of how you could solve your real problems. I advise people to actually build like a mini e-commerce project, right? Why I say e-commerce, right? Commerce is actually a big deal, right? And e-commerce gives you an instance of um buying, selling, adding products. It's just more of extending more on removing, adding, selling. You're working with cash, you're working with amounts, you're calculating currencies, yeah. So it gives you an idea of, it makes you challenge yourself further, right? And you don't need to, another thing that people do as a beginner, you don't really need to start building everything from scratch on your end, because you might not have like the direction on how to build it, right? So one thing you should try to do is to get templates online, right? Try to get templates online, research templates online for beginners, right? See how it is done, right? Now follow their structure in building yours, right? Most tutorials you watch, they are either building maybe a project, right? And you'll be building yours as you're building the project. So that's how you should learn, right? So take up, I'm just using e-commerce project as one of the um easy tasks, right, but difficult tasks that I feel like one could complete, right, and add to is our GitHub repo, and add to giving yourself a more instance on on advantage in building your portfolio, right? So in portfolio, right? Sorry, excuse me. As a beginner, in your portfolio, a lot of people really are really scared that, oh, I've not done so much, right? What can I add to my resume, right? But one thing I want you to do is that you should at least get something, a project you've worked on, if not one or two, and add those projects to your portfolio. I won't hire a beginner that just tells me that he has X and Y skills on just his portfolio, but doesn't have a project to back that up, right? I won't, I, I would say you need to work on simple tasks, right? You don't even need to, not just e-commerce. I'm mentioning e-commerce as an example, right? But add a lot of projects, a lot of smaller projects into your portfolio and your GitHub. This will give the interviewer an instance of, oh, this is an hands-on person. Like this person has actually tried to do some stuff, so try to do the actual work of being a software engineer, right? And it gives you an opportunity, it gives you an edge over others, right? Yeah, basically.
Absolutely. Instead of not doing anything and getting overwhelmed, at least start with
Yeah.
those small projects and show them that you can. And you're right about using the templates. I think a lot of time people feel like they have to do everything, but there's so many things they can just learn from. But it's the
Yes.
idea and their thoughtfulness that they bring together everything and create a project that stands out
Mm-hmm.
by using
Yes,
something already existing. Yeah,
exactly.
awesome, amazing. Thank you. Those are great tips. Uh, I think someone had a question, but that's more of like, yeah, Erere. That's a question on cloud architecture. So sorry, Erere, but this is, I guess you could still apply the same tips in other industries as well when you're building your portfolio in cybersecurity. But this event is on software development. So if you have a question on software development, please put that in the chat. We can go back to the question that someone shared a few minutes ago.
Okay.
Uh, I think we already discussed how do you keep up with changes in technology. Um, but the second part of the question is interesting. It's like what did you do when the first time you were job searching, when you were growing your career? So first time you were landing a job, what steps did you take um, to land that job?
Okay. So the steps I took was I actually the exact advice I'm giving out is what I did, right? I actually did a lot of projects, right? I built a school project website, right? Application where school projects where people in university could submit their projects online, right? So one also thing I did was that I started talking to a lot of people. I started networking and telling people that I am good at this, right? And I started meeting people, telling people that I know how to do this, right? I can give you a try, right? And how I got my first job was through a friend that I told, right? Um, so I told him that I'm very good at, so he was already into software engineering. Basically, he was also a web developer. So I told him that, you know what, I know that he was a freelancer, right? So I told him that, you know what, I'm also good at this, right? In case you find projects you don't have time to work on, right? I'm very much available to work on it at any cost, right? That's how I started building. So I was doing a very free service, right? Which is very important. It just helped me to build um, my project along the line, right? And because of the work I did, right, I was able to convince someone else, right, that owned like where I interned first, the owner of the company, right, was able to convince him that okay, you could come into my company, right? So he was trying to get outsource one of the projects because all his engineers were filled up, right? So he was trying to outsource one of his projects, and luckily for me, the person I told said, "Oh, his hands are filled up. He could give it to me," and I did the work very well, and that's how I got my first job, right? So um in the sense that you should be open to networking to people. I'm telling people that you no matter even in LinkedIn, there's nothing that could happen to you, right? Try to reach out to a lot of people and tell people this is what you do and these are the projects you've worked on, right? This is what you can do, right? There's no harm in doing that. There's really no harm. The least thing that will happen is the person he or she doesn't reply, right? But try to network, try to put yourself out there because nobody will know you from the four walls of your room, right? If you're just building products and you're not out there, if you're just building and learning and you're not out there, nobody will know you. So, one key thing is speaking up and networking and telling people what you do, right? This will give you a sense of people understanding, okay, when we need your service, we would always get to call you or get to meet you, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these are like often overlooked skills as well.
Hmm.
And I can relate to that as well. Like the last three jobs I have had have always been through messaging people on LinkedIn, even like
Yeah,
or like someone messages me because they see my projects, or they or I message them on LinkedIn, and that it just works.
that's
Uh,
it. It just
so yeah,
works.
exactly, it's magical. So everyone here should learn how to cold email and learn how to network. And networking doesn't mean that you have to go in big events. Just networking with
Yeah.
people online. And there is, if anyone here is interested, we have a free course on that on personal branding. So if you sign up to any of the courses on entry level, you get a free personal branding course, which can help you do that. Uh, Thank you for sharing your yeah, like experiences and advice, giving advice, Joshua. I think we have 10 more minutes left. Uh, I we've spoken about the technical side of things, like technical skills and how to build the projects. I guess when someone is applying for a job in software development, what are some non-technical skills that companies look for? Like it doesn't like, yeah, soft skills, I guess. Uh,
Okay.
what are
Yeah.
some
Very.
things that we should be mindful of? Yeah, or we should try to develop.
Yeah. Very, very, very good question, right? Because there's a popular saying that a bad behavior, right, doesn't grow a team, right? So basically, one of the soft skills is communication skills, right? That's the basis of all, right? Especially working in the world where remote work is very popular, right? And you're working with people of different time zones, people of diverse thoughts, diverse thinking, right? Communication is very key, right? You need to be very clear about your communication, right? And be very opened up, speak out, right? So that's why I grab everything, I put everything into a box of communication. And how you communicate really matters, how you talk really matters. In terms of, oh, I'm not finishing my tasks, I have a blocker, it all lies on that communication because you're able to communicate, oh, this is what is really happening, and this is where I'm stuck at, and this is what I really need help at. Everything still boils down to your communication skills, right? And also integrity, right? Integrity is really people miss integrity. People don't really take integrity for what it is. But in most companies, right, up to the final stage, what they'll ask you is culture fit, right? They try to understand, what are your values. That's really, and your values align with what the company wants, right? And in all companies, right, one thing they are very certain about is your honesty and integrity, right? And when it comes to that, it means being diligent, right? When you say you want to do something, when you say you can achieve something within that time, do it and do it well, right? What is what doing is what doing well, because along the line, right, a lot of people will be able to vouch for you in terms of what you've done before, right? A lot of people will be able to stand for you and say, because there are a lot of offices that, or a lot of places your names are mentioned at, and you don't have an idea of what is going on, what they're talking about, right? At that point, what work you've done before, in terms of doing it diligently and your integrity and being very honest, right, helps you stand out and helps people speak for you, right? So I've mentioned communication, I've mentioned integrity and being honest, right? And I've also, the other soft skill that I need to also mention is being on time, right? A lot of people don't um, a lot of people don't join meetings on time, and people always say, like I mentioned before earlier, right, that it's one of software engineers don't really like meetings, they just like to write code, right? But once you grow and once you evolve, right, you might start to be a manager and be able to manage teams, and you need to imbibe your own values into that team, basically. So time, management of time, integrity, and communication. Those are like three core soft skills that you need to abide with. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Communication sounds so simple, but it's not.
Yeah.
And just like being on time, but like even just communicating well. Uh, it's a very often overlooked skill, which people in the technical industry sometimes don't spend time developing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. We already have some people thanking us for thanking you for the advice. So thank you, Joshua. Uh, awesome. I
Thank you
guess
too.
I'm gonna. There's one more question in the chat. I'm gonna mix it with the question that I had. So it was around how do you keep yourself relevant in the tech industry that is ever evolving, but at the same time, I guess I would mix that question with where do you see your career or like any software developer's career, the industry evolve in the next 5 years? Like, what do you imagine the future, like next, not even the future, actually, future is hard to predict, but at least in the next 3 to 5 years, especially with all the how it's evolving, what's your prediction where it will go and where your career will go as well?
Okay, so I'll first answer the question that you asked, like how do I evolve? So I've already explained how I evolved, right? I read a lot of articles, right? And I read a lot of articles, basically. I feel articles are shorter than reading books, right? It gives so direct, right? So I'm always reading articles on what's really happening in the tech industry. That's very, very important. And that's like the way I evolve, right? And after reading those articles, you might not necessarily need to dive into um what you've what you've learned from that article. You might not need to necessarily go in depth, but others that you need to go in depth, and that's fine, right? So that's how I evolve, and all that thing too I do is that I try to connect with people on LinkedIn. Very important, right? I attend a lot of tech events. I actually attend a lot of tech events, especially in London here, right? Almost all tech events, you either see me. I'm communicating, I'm networking, I'm learning, right? And I'm impacting to other people too. So basically, in that community, I'm always knowing what people are building, right? I'm always trying to see, okay, what's the new thing in town, right? So you need to actually be open to listening to people and attending communities where people are building good, really good stuff, right? In terms of where I see myself or the tech industry in years to come, I feel like the tech basically is getting much easier, right? In terms of there are a lot of infrastructures already built to in place for compared to when I started, right? Where you have to build a lot of things yourself. There are already a lot of infrastructures that you could pick on and play on, right? And I want to believe, right, compared to before, it should be much easier to start your career as a software engineer because there are a lot of resources where you could pick from. Like you've mentioned entry level, there are a lot of resources, right? When I first started, right, there were very scarce resources you could find, right, to learn or pick from, right? Even on the internet, there were so many rare courses, right? So where I see tech, I feel like there's still going to be a lot of building of infrastructures. There are going to be a lot of easier things to learn, right? There are going to be pathways to learn things easier. There's going to be easier way to deploy products or build products, way much easier, cut down in timelines, right? On building products. Um, yeah, that's where I really see tech at, right? And that's where it is going to, and a lot of people are going to, a lot of things are going to, a lot of products going to leverage on AI, right? Build faster, scale faster, launch faster, move faster, basically. But don't be scared, right? A lot of people say AI is going to take away software engineering jobs, right? I don't think that's true, right? Because AIs are models, right? They are modeled to solve a particular solution, right? And if you want to, every single time, like there are new updates, you need to remodel and remodel. It's just a machine teaching a machine. So basically, there are always going to be software engineering jobs. Like there are always going to be. So don't be discouraged about that, right? There are always problems where you even need to solve much better, right? Basically.
Awesome. That's a great answer. And I
Yeah.
hope that answers your question, Shadrach, who asked this question. Awesome. We are almost at the end of our time, 45 minutes. So if anyone has any last question, you can drop it in. But otherwise, I'll continue asking my last question. So, but first of all, thank you so much, Joshua, for the
Thank
advice
you
that
too.
you've given, and also for taking out the time uh, on a Thursday evening for us.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think yeah, for all those who are listening, I'm sure you're yeah, there is a recording, Ivan. We can share that with you. And I think Kelvin has a question. How can you join a training? I can put the website here, and then you can check out our courses. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can email us as well. I think my last question to you, it's not really a question for everyone who is
Okay.
here, the remainder of the people. Yeah, just what advice that you want to give them? That's something that you have learned in your career that doesn't have to be related to software development, just something that you can give advice to. As we notice that 90% of the people who are listening and even the audience at entry level, they're all beginners, they're entry level talent, they're looking for new jobs, getting started in a career or switching careers. So they've studied something else and they want to get started in a new industry. What's one piece of advice that you would like to give us, like including me? I am one of them. So yeah, all of us. Yeah.
All right. So, one thing, you need to be passionate about what you're learning, right? It's a passion that is the drive, right? Passion can come from different sources, right? It could be you're enjoying it, it could be your other things are your motivation. So, but you need to actually have that passion for it, right? That's number one thing. That's actually the drive for you learning. Number two is that you need to be very good at what you're doing, right? Learn knowing that there are 10 of me trying to apply for this job. So I need to be outstanding, right? Because now the tech roles are a lot of people are coming into software development. So you need to actually and learn well, right? Basically understand the fundamentals. I keep mentioning the fundamentals because the fundamentals is where all other infrastructures are being built upon, right? So learning the fundamentals at this point gives you a solid foundation to grow, right? That's very, very important. Don't just skip through the fundamentals. And this is actually the right time to start learning the fundamentals, right? Because and again, don't be scared about understanding so many things that you're reading. At a time you see the importance and you understand, oh, this is really what I've learned at that time, right? Third thing is that you need to actually also, it's preferably if you can get a mentor, reach out to people, right? If you could, that have been that have been in this ecosystem, right, for a while. Reach out to them on LinkedIn, reach out to people that you feel that at least once a month, right, or twice a month, it's okay to give you to make sure that you're in part, right, or in the direction on how you're building, because a lot of people might something that people don't understand is that a lot of people might isolate themselves and keep on building, but they're not building on the right path, right? Maybe the technology they're trying to learn is obsolete, and new companies or new tech companies are no longer using that, right? So, get a mentor, right, that would also direct you on the right path, on the right thing to follow. And when getting a mentor, get a mentor in your own interest, right? When I mean your interest, get a mentor in the sense that, okay, you have an idea of, I want to be building mobile apps at the end of the day, right? Get someone that has been building mobile apps, right? In that particular sector, that would give you a clear direction or clear path on how to work, on how to follow, on how to grow, basically. Yeah, those are like the three core things. First of all, your passion, as I mentioned, Next thing is your motivation, right? And also your mentorship also. And lastly, keep growing, keep learning, keep reading, right? Keep reading a lot of articles, keep being in vogue, right? You don't need to, so many people prefer watching videos to reading. So many people prefer keep connecting, right? Keep connecting with people and know what people are building and know what people are doing, right? Another way too, you could also um and you can also contribute is do a lot of open source, right? You can meet a lot of community where they are building open source and you could contribute to it in a little, in the most very, very little way, right? And you are building an open source gives you more, is even a playground for learning. I didn't mention that. So try to contribute to open source, right? And yeah, I believe that with that it is enough for you to actually gain a ground and grow in your software engineering journey.
Awesome. I was making notes as well. 1 second. Awesome. Yeah, that's great advice. I made notes as well, and I'll send everyone an email, the students who could not join as well. Wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Joshua, and thank
Thank
you
you.
everyone as well for joining us. Yeah, I really appreciate your time, and I'll get in touch with you over email. And for the rest of you, you will get a email from us uh, with the recording of the event as well.
All
Wonderful.
right.
Lovely. I think the 50 minutes just passed away very quickly.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Arish, too. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.